Hey, I'm thinking about something kind of quiet. Not even quiet, really. I think maybe we're all too loud. Dulcimer players. I think we're too loud. I mean, I know I'm too loud when I talk. So I'm trying to work on that. But I think almost all of us are too loud when we play. And why do I think this? Well, I think what's going on is we play a quiet instrument. And when we try to make it louder, I think it just ends up sounding worse. The thing I've done that's very interesting is I will play a guitar. You don't even have to know how to play guitar. Just strum on it. Hold the pick loosely. Don't try to be loud. Maybe just try to be in the middle of the road. Not loud, not quiet. Just strum a guitar. You don't even have to fret anything. Pay attention to how that feels. Just kind of a normal guitar volume. Put it down. Pick up a dulcimer, do that same thing. And what you'll notice is your dulcimer will not be as loud as you want it to be. I think what happens is, if you play this thing kind of the way we ought to, I know that's subjective, but if you strum this the way you'd strum a lot of other instruments, you're just going to find it's not as loud as you want it to be. And I think we're trying to make it louder than that because we want to hear the darn thing. I know when we get in jams, I mean, I know that I kick up the volume quite a bit, you know. So what's the problem, you might say? Well, here's some of the problems. Number one, when you hit these harder than you kind of should, actually the strings are always kind of sharp a little bit, pitch-wise. If you hit really hard, you'll hear the pitch goes high for just a moment, just a brief moment, and then it kind of settles down. When you're hitting this really hard all the time, and this does depend on your string gauges, you're going to find that I think you just sound just a hair out of tune. Maybe not everyone knows they hear that, but I think subconsciously we all are affected by it. So you're hitting it too hard because you want to hear it, and it's just making it sound out of tune. Also, when you hit these too hard, they buzz, and they make a slapping, popping, buzzy sound. I've been guilty of this for years. When I get on stage, it's not unusual for me to it's almost like I can't hear myself up there. And I end up playing harder than usual. And then I'll listen back to a recording and I'll think, man, that's a lot. So I hear a lot of clubs, a lot of individuals. I hear myself. It just doesn't sound in tune, and it sounds buzzy and kind of nasty, I think, when we hit it too hard. So what I'll do with a group of people when I'm teaching, you know, we just finished the second B part of a tune. We're coming around to the A part, and I'll say, all right, back to the A part. Cut your volume in half. All of a sudden, it sounds sweet, sounds beautiful. So, you know, let me give you some examples of me playing really quiet. Now, really, I'm playing too quiet. Like if you were in the room with me here in the kitchen, I think that'd be a little too quiet. When you have a microphone going, especially like on an iPhone or something, it's gonna, if it hears that there's a bunch of quiet stuff going on, it'll turn up the recording level. And sometimes you kind of get a neat sound. I'm curious to listen to this video afterwards and see what that sounded like. There's a thing that happens in studios for years where a singer will sing very quietly in a very quiet room, very close to the mic, and they'll turn that mic up. And you know, you hear the song, you don't realize how quiet that singer is. There's a lot of talk I've heard in electric guitar circles where they talk about play very quietly, and then they just turn them up. It's like sometimes you get a better sound, you know. What's another advantage of this? Well, here's a disadvantage if you're playing loud all the time. You can't really get much louder. If you bring your volume down, it gives you all this room to add accents. Or maybe you get to the last time of the tune and you kick it up a little louder, you know. That's something a lot of mountain dulcimer players are missing out on. You're playing, I don't know, 80, 90% of your top volume, maybe more. And you don't ever let up. It just creates this brick wall of sound. I think it wears people out, you know. Now, you might be in love with that sound. What's some other stuff about this? Well, I'll tell you, maybe. Especially men. You know, I'm losing some of my upper frequencies a little bit. I think that's normal. I mean, everyone can lose hearing, but I've heard it said that men lose some upper frequencies, you know, in their 40s and 50s. I don't know. Seems like it, you know, the sounds we make, S sounds, sibilants, they call it. I think I hear a little less of that than I used to. Makes it hard to tell what somebody's saying when their back's turned to me or something like that. Well, I think as our ears maybe start to lose some sensitivity, I think we start to play louder. Here's another place where you can lose sensitivity. Your fingertips. I think I'm all right. But I've had people tell me that they have lost sensitivity in their fingertips a little bit. Well, what happens in that case? Well, you probably drop the pick a little more often. So you tend to hold the pick a little tighter to compensate. Tighter pick grip on a strum makes it louder. So like when I was just playing really quiet, that pick is so loose between my fingers, it's flopping back and forth a little. But I've learned how to hold it in such a way where it generally comes back to where it started from. And that takes time. If you start loosening your pick grip, you're going to drop the pick. So I don't know what's optimal here. But I do know that this dulcimer playing I'm doing right now, that seems so quiet to me here in this room, if I played a guitar with that same right hand, it'd be plenty loud enough. So part of me just wants to embrace this is a quiet instrument. Let me try a little Rock the Cradle Joe. almost like playing quieter. I notice my shoulders are kind of tense. My right hand feels a little worn out. I don't know what that is. Maybe that's, I think I'm not used to playing quieter. And I don't want to call it quiet, y'all. I'll tell you who's pretty good at not being too loud. Aaron O'Rourke. I used to think, man, I really wish he'd light into that thing, you know. But I think he's been doing it right all along. You know. I think he was doing it right. I got something here I wanted to read. This is very interesting. Listen to this. And someone sent this to me, and he's working on a book. So I don't want to betray his efforts. So I'm just going to keep him anonymous for now. If this is you, if you're watching this, let me know how you want me to share things out of here. Because I want to give you a chance to release this to the world first, really, you know. But this says, May 18, 1816, Virginia Herald paper, Fredericksburg, Virginia, reports the jail escape of George Boxley. George Boxley was born 1780, died 1865. So in 1816, he was awaiting trial for his part in organizing a slave revolt after his wife smuggled a spring saw into his cell. He farmed, operated a general store, and owned a tannery in Fredericksburg. For a time, he was a slave owner. He served in the Virginia militia during the War of 1812. About this time, he became an ardent abolitionist. He was also very opposed to the banking system and government taxation. Sounds like an interesting individual. He and his family fled from bounty hunters for 12 years. Boxley fled for a time to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, then to Lancaster, Ohio, about 1820, where he met up with his family, and finally to Sheridan, Indiana, in 1828. Now here's where it gets interesting. A book from the Sheridan Historical Society called The Man with a Price on His Head, The Life of George Boxley. This book was discovered among the Society's papers in the 1930s, mentions Boxley being a dulcimer player. While on the lam, and this is a quote from this book, he wrote his wife and said to bring useful things, and yet if she could, to bring some of his favorite books and also his dulcimer. He had the use of a dulcimer during the winter and had learned much. He asked for books, literature. For his dulcimer, he asked for music. The account has one other dulcimer mentioned. Many paths, called bridle paths, were brushed out between the settlements. It was to George Boxley's delight to mount upon a large white bull and take his dulcimer and call on the neighbors. As he approached their home, he would play a tune that would bring all the family to the door. He's riding his horse, okay? So I'm tempted to think it's a hammered dulcimer, but if I had to play a dulcimer on a horse, I think I would probably go with a mountain dulcimer, you know, like this. What's the truth? I don't know, but I think it's a mountain dulcimer. But what an interesting account. We're getting to a point in history where some of these accounts are findable. you can search through unbelievable amounts of newspapers, and you can look for the word Dulcimer. You can use something like ChatGPT or even your own imagination to generate a list of possible variant spellings and also a list of misspellings of those variants. I've had a lot of luck searching through old articles looking for phrases like 3 strings, quill, frets. You know, it's interesting how we, right now, can find accounts of dulcimers that people haven't really known about. Now, I could be wrong. You know, of course, some of these things maybe are common knowledge to some folks, but my buddies found a lot of stuff. And again, if that's you, how do you want me to talk about you and what you're doing? I found something that I'm not ready to share, and I've been really digging and collecting. There's this young fella that grew up in the middle of nowhere, and he was born in the late 1800s. He ends up coming into the town of Lexington, Kentucky, and it's very clear that he has this kind of dulcimer with him. And he ends up traveling all over, and you can follow his travels by going to some of these cities he visited, and you'll see little articles in each of their papers talking about this guy and his dulcimer. And then a bunch of years later, he ends up getting embroiled in this criminal mystery story, you know. And as far as I can tell, it has a happy ending. And I think I've found pictures of this guy. But we're able to find this stuff. So I want to encourage you to do the same. If I'm the only one doing it, and my buddy, you know, I know there's more people doing it, but hey, you can do it too. So there's also something that's going to happen one day, and it's going to be soon. Think about this. Handwritten letters, handwritten diaries, all over the world, in lots of different languages. The computers eventually will have all this scanned in, and you will be able to say, hey, are there any mentions in any language in handwritten materials of an instrument that's like this? You know, it's going to be wild. And I think what I'm really settling on is this kind of instrument. I think they're such a basic part of humanity. You can't really say where they came from, for the most part, because it's too simple. Simple tools make this simple instrument, and they're played simply. It's the kind of thing that shows up in cultures all over the world. It can disappear and pop up somewhere else again. You know, it's like, and I've said this before, but do you think shoes just came from one person? One person said, shoes. No, I think there's a need. It's simple. I think shoes are a basic part of humanity. I think the instrument is like this. I know there's some people that think the hammer dulcimer and anything like it, a struck zither basically, is older than this. I don't think so. Could be. But I think if you look at everything, you don't say that so proudly. I think you put some strings across something and you put some frets under it in a primitive fashion. Seems like they both are pretty old to me. I don't think we need to pretend that this is some modern invention whose influence has been greatly exaggerated. No, it's foolishness. Hey, I got something else here. These 2 books here are pretty cool. What do I have here? Well, these are both by Phyllis Gaskins. Do I have these in the right order? I can't tell. I don't know. Wait, where's my left? Where's your left? I don't know. I'm not good at that kind of thing. But I'll tell you what, this first book of hers is called Galax Dulcimer, A Job of Journey Work. And this one is the second book, Pig and a Pen and Other Fiddle Ditties for Galax Dulcimer and Other Hog Fiddles. That might, include us, by Phyllis and Jim Gaskins. What's Galax Dulcimer? If you've watched my stuff, you've seen me talk about it. But it's something that comes from the Galax, Virginia area. It was usually 4 equidistant strings, all of them tuned to the same note, probably a D. And what's unique about it is you can play in 2 keys without a capo. You fret with a note or stick the 2 strings closest to you. So you've got the 2 D drones. It actually allows you to play in the key of D or G without changing tuning, without using a capo. It works great. Wonderful, beautiful tradition. We can talk about that more later. But what Phyllis has done is she's put out 2 books for it. And you might think, wow, that's all good and fine and everything, but what does that do for a regular dulcimer? It actually does wonders. And I'll tell you basically how to use the thing. Now, I'm not saying across the board, but pretty much it looks like to me anything in here that's in D major, you can play on this dulcimer here just fine. And she even uses a 6.5 fret sometimes, so you're good to go on that. Anything in here that's in the key of G, you can use exactly what's here. You can tune your middle string down to a G. That's it. Put you in D, G, D. And a lot of these tunes are in D and G. She's also got a system, and this is kind of fancy, where you put a little miniature movable nut under the 2 strings farthest from you. And that can allow you to play in A, modal. I think you can do E minor with it. So if you want to do that with very little alteration and sometimes none, I think you can just get away with capoing D-A-D at 1 for the E minor tunes. And I haven't done a survey of all the keys. I'm actually imagining how to handle this. If you're in D, G, D and you capo at 1, that would probably handle the A modal tunes, which could be A Mixolydian, A Dorian, sometimes A major. Yeah, but you don't get a G sharp in there. Heather said I woke up in the middle of the night. No, she said I snored. She heard me snore in the middle of the night, and then she heard me say G sharp. and then she woke me up and she said, "Hey, you just said G sharp." Now, I remember her saying that. And I was like, good. I was probably thinking about how a lot of A tunes on the dulcimer, we don't have a G sharp. You do have one on the middle, though. It's 6.5. Don't forget. Anyway, back to these books. There are a tremendous number of really good tunes in here, and I guarantee you some of you aren't playing them. And these aren't just a bunch of tunes for tune's sake. Like she didn't just dig these out of nowhere. These are liked and loved tunes. They're common with fiddlers in the old-time world. And they are tried and true. And she's got stories on all these things. Like Dinah here, it says, it tells you all about it. And it tells you about her playing it. And it is so good. Each book comes with a CD. Is that true? I know this one does. The first one, I'm not sure about Pig and a Pen. But I thought I'd play a tune out of this thing. And let's pick one in D just to keep it friendly here. There's this tune, Fortune. So this is Galax Dulcimer, A Job of Journey Work, her first book. Says Fortune. And I'll read you the notes here. This great old tune is rarely heard outside the Surrey County, North Carolina, Southwest Virginia region. The lyrics describe some unfortunate things that can happen to a fellow when he's had too much to drink. The song lyrics were collected in the early 1900s from a broadside, without music, published by L. de Marsan, D-E space M-A-R-S-A-N, titled I'll Ne'er Get Drunk Again. I've never met a Galax Mountain Airy musician who did not play a version of this tune. Then she's got this picture of Don Neuhauser. Don made 5, 6 of my dulcimers. Don Neuhauser made this wormy maple and rosewood Galax dulcimer for his sister, Dot Christensen, who has placed second at the Galax Fiddlers Convention 3 times and has been among the top 10 winners for 10 years in a row. Photo by Dot Neuhauser. And of course, Don died not too long ago. We all miss him. I remember David Schnaufer playing this tune. And he would often state this one line from the tune: "Fortune I had it, fortune I lost it, one night when I got drunk." So let's see what I've got here. And yes, I'm going to sight read this thing. Another A part. It's nice readable tab. B part. And remember, Phyllis does this with a noter. I might be making some mistakes, but I'm all right with it if you are. And usually this is played really fast. And my point here is that even though this was written for a 4 equidistant dulcimer tune D, 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 I think you could play most, if not all, of these tunes on a regular dulcimer. I mean, many of these are in D and G. And that goes on here real well, you know. Also, you want to know a little secret? If you've got music written that works for DGD, where the middle string's a G, you can get your dulcimer tuned to DAA. And I'm just talking about simple melody string fiddle tunes. Tune a dulcimer DAA, play those same fret numbers on the melody string, you'll get the tune out just fine, but it'll now be in the key of D. Well, if that's true, that means you can take a DAD tuned dulcimer. These G tunes in here, put those fret numbers on your middle string only, and you'll actually get the tune, but you'll be in the key of D. But I want people to buy these 2 books. I think they are absolutely filled with nice dulcimer versions. And here's the thing about Phyllis. When I say tried and true, she has tried them, and they are now true. They are not false tunes, you know. I think you're getting to see these tunes filtered over time through a good dulcimer player. Some things work better on certain instruments. Some things work really well on a banjo, and other things do not. Same is true for us. Well, when you get these tunes, I think a good player, they will emphasize the parts that work well on the dulcimer and de-emphasize the parts that don't, but they'll do it in a way it's the same tune, but it becomes a dulcimer version. So I can't recommend these enough. Let me play this tune a little more. Now, I used to play this with David, so when I go that fast, I'm tempted to not read the paper. Let me just see. What do I have in my head from the David time? I done played it out of tune. That's a good tune. I think I beat it to death. But I'm playing quiet. I don't know if you can tell. Is there a different sound than usual? That's a good tune. David would play it so fast. You know, as I'm making these videos, I'm always thinking, oh man, you shouldn't have played that tune so many times. You know, you should play different tunes. Or I hear this little voice in my head going, you should stop the video. This is too long. Nobody's going to watch all this. And I keep telling myself, you know, I do so many things where I'm really trying to cater to the people in the room, and I'm happy to do it. It's good for me. It's good for them. This is for me. This is for me, and you get to, I guess, hang out with me. It's not just for me, but look, man, I've got to be able to just speak my mind and play and have fun in the kitchen. If you can't do that in your own kitchen, you know, where can you do it? So crazy how much media is prepared for us and edited just right for consumption. I'll tell you, part of me, what I like about doing this in the kitchen is I had relatives in the old days that lived out in the country, and we would go visit them. When I got my driver's license, I remember going to visit some of these folks in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky, you know, out in the middle of nowhere. You know, it would take a while to get there. I remember going to Uncle Riley's. It was 6 a.m. I left, home and headed out there. It was the first time I had been there just by myself. And I went and saw him. And he actually gave me a really good compliment. I never just hung out, just the two of us like that. We talked about all kinds of things. But he said when he used to be in one of these World War II bombers, and I forget what his job was. I almost want to say he was aiming the bombs or something. But he said everything was so loud that it kind of had ruined his ears. And he said his ears are very sensitive now to, he doesn't like music. I think I got my Dulcimer out and played for him. And I don't know if he was being honest, but he was pretty straight shooter. He said, that there was someone in the family who played guitar, and it hurt his ears so bad. He just hated to hear music in the room like that. But he said, your instrument doesn't bother my ears. Was he telling the truth? Is it so bad to be quiet in a loud world? Really? Embrace your quiet instrument. So, you want a bunch of good tunes? I mean, look, I've got enough books of fiddle tunes in there. I could be, and what I mean is written for fiddlers. I could be releasing a new book every 6 months with just a bunch of untested tunes. I like to think I'd pick out good ones. And I've done this before, and I'd make them Dulcimer-y. I just feel like her books are really, really good. These are good. Let's do one more, just because we can. This is Old Molly Hare on page 31. Same book. She says, Old Molly Hare, an Appalachian variant of the Scottish tune, the Fairy Reel, is a lively dance tune with lots of lyrics and was one of the first old-time tunes I learned to play. She's got this cool picture of 4 Raymond Melton Dulcimers from the early 70s. I'll tell you, that's one thing she did a great job at, and here's pictures. Old Molly Hare, what you doing there? Running through the cotton patch as hard as I can tear. Leg like a deer, foot like a bear, running through the cotton patch as hard as I can tear. Old Molly Hare, yonder comes a bear, coming down the hill as hard as he can tear. Old Molly Hare, what you doing there? Sitting on the hillside, looking at the bear. There's something fiddlers do which I think we could learn from. Sometimes they're a little louder on the A part. A little bit louder on this A part. A little quieter on the B part, but not much. It's like barely noticeable. I wish Dulcimer players did this more. We play everything at one volume, you know. I'm talking to myself. reducing it a little here. Cool tunes, huh? Now that's a good Dulcimer tune, I think. Try to get quieter on this B part coming up. Just a little bit. Open it up. So put that on your to-do list. It's on mine. Can we all stop playing so loud? You want dynamic range. You know, you want to be able to get quieter and you want to be able to get louder. So most of your playing ought to be somewhere in the middle. We want to sound in tune. We don't want to be buzzy and slappy. And think about playing your A parts a little louder and your B parts a little softer. But don't ever let your B part sound wimpy. When I ask a group to make the B part softer, they usually overdo it. It's a very subtle difference, very subtle difference. Well, thank y'all for putting up with me. And let me know how it sounds. Does it sound different? I do have a lapel mic on. That's the first time I've done this for Dulcimer Diary. So I found this thing's too sensitive. If I talk loud or play loud, it distorts. So let me know. Give me a sound report, would you? A reception report. Thanks a lot, y'all. See you later.